Welcome to Camp Constitution Radio with your host, Hal Shurtleff. This show is heard on WBCQ The Planet every Monday night at 7:30 Eastern Standard Time. Broadcast out of the beautiful town of Monticello, Maine, up in Aroostook County. And incidentally, I'm going to be up in Aroostook County this week. I do the show from my home in Boston, Massachusetts, but this coming week I'll be giving several presentations. We'll be showing the video Death by China in Holton, Maine on Friday night, this coming Friday, at 6 p.m. at the McDonald's on Route 1, 110 North Street, Route 1. Then, Wednesday, just a few days from now, I'll be in St. Agathe. It's people who don't know the town say St. Agatha, but it's pronounced St. Agathe at Our Father's Place on Main Street. And that's going to also be at 6 o'clock. No RSVPs required. People can order off the menu. They usually have a special there. And then Saturday morning, Presque Isle at 9 o'clock at the Governor's Restaurant. And it's a documentary exposing the free trade policies with China and how destructive they've been, and then some solutions, and I'll have material about the free trade issue. I'll also be speaking at the Rotary Club in Fort Kent, Maine, although I guess you'd have to contact somebody from the Fort Kent Rotary to get invited. That's going to be Thursday night at 7 o'clock. So I got a busy schedule. And this show was brought to you by Camp Constitution, which, among other things, has a wonderful summer camp. And our guest, I'll introduce in a few seconds here, is one of our instructors. But next year's camp will run from July 10th to the 17th. And God willing, Reverend Kraft will be back again with his lovely wife, instructing and teaching and preaching. Anyway, let me bring on our guest, Reverend Stevie Kraft. Reverend Kraft is a longtime Camp Constitution instructor. He's the author of a book, Morality and Freedom, America's Dynamic Duo. And he speaks around the country, actually around the world. You've been to South Africa and other places promoting godly values. And so, Reverend Steve, thanks for coming on.
Thanks for having me, Brother Hal.
Well, this is I think the second time you've been on the show since we started in January of this year, 2015. But yesterday, this would be we broadcast the show broadcast on a Monday. Right now, it's a Sunday night, and Friday, Reverend Kraft and I were in New York City, where Reverend Kraft lives in New Jersey. But we went to visit the church in Harlem led by Reverend James David Manning, who is very well known on YouTube, and he's got a very interesting ministry. So why don't you just elaborate a little bit on Reverend James Manning and the connections you made recently and the importance of his ministry, Rev?
It's very, very, the ministry of Dr. Manning is very, very powerful. It's powerful in the extent, Brother Hal, that Reverend Manning fits his church. His church is on 123rd and Lenox Avenue in the heart of Harlem. And he has been there since 1981, preaching the uncompromising gospel and coming against the current administration in Washington that's led by Barack Obama. Reverend Manning is a fearless warrior for Jesus Christ. You and I were going to try to meet with him on Friday when we were in Harlem, but he wasn't available Friday. But what I did, I went back yesterday, Saturday, and was able to meet with him. I sat in their 10 o'clock and 11 o'clock service. They have worship on Saturday, and he gave me the opportunity, as well as another minister, to give words of encouragement to the congregation. And I was so blessed. As a matter of fact, Brother Hal, I am going to, I was sitting here looking at the live stream, and I'm going to forward it to you so that you can see through the whole thing, the whole presentation. Well, my part was only 10 minutes, but the whole second service was 1 hour and 38 minutes. So it's somewhat lengthy because they live streamed the whole service and put it on his Facebook page. But it was very, very interesting because he has taken a stand against the spirit of sodomy, the homosexual movement, that has taken over our nation with this counterfeit marriage law, this ungodly law of same-sex marriage that the Supreme Court passed. Reverend Manning has taken a stand against that very vocally. He produces a program, a live television show, Monday through Friday called the David Manning Report.
By the way, I think it's important to point out that there wasn't actually a law passed. There were two narcissistic men that moved out of, I think it was California, to another state, and they demanded that their counterfeit marriage be acknowledged in that state. And as a result of that, the Supreme Court said all of the states that have laws against this thing called homosexual or same-sex marriage have to be taken down. And so the whole notion that the Supreme Court never has that power. But unfortunately, too many people cave in. But I just wanted to clarify that. So
exactly. Yeah. And Reverend Manning, as well as others, including you, I, and others, have taken a direct stand against that. I was able to give remarks at that service yesterday, and Reverend Manning invited me back. I'm going to be going back. I'm not sure when. I think probably within the next week or so to actually sit with him and do the Manning Report. It's a 3-hour report, Monday through Friday from 3 p.m. to 6 p.m. So he said that his wife would call me tomorrow, Monday, and tell me exactly what day I am to come back to Harlem and actually sit in the studio with him and discuss the different issues of the day. He also invited me. I'm also going to be going back there to preach in the near future. So I'm hoping, in fact, I am pretty sure, because he did ask where you were, and I explained to him that you had to get back to Massachusetts, and you wasn't able to remain with me on yesterday. But I am planning, when I go back to do the Manning Report, to I shared with him about CAM Constitution. He took the material. I didn't get a lot of response from him then and there because he was so preoccupied with many other things. But when I go back for the Manning Report, I will have his undivided attention, obviously, because it won't be a church service where everybody's pulling on him. And then I'm going to get you. I'm going to ask him to have you in on one of the Manning Report shows, because I think that would really be a blessing.
Well, I had the opportunity to do a talk show with him, a radio show. Now, at that point, it was about 7 or 8 years ago.
Uh-huh.
It was a minister in Rochester, New York, a black minister, and I made some comments. And Reverend Manning said something that I really don't want to believe, but sometimes he says things and he makes generalizations. But he said all black people hate white people. Well, we know that's not true.
Right.
But he's pointing out that there's a lot of he looks at there's racism. The blacks can be racist too. It's not just white people that are racist.
Right.
And I pointed out there was a very fascinating book. It was called Brainwashing. It was written by Edward Hunter, the man who most likely coined the term back in the 50s. And you can find this book on Amazon it was printed numerous times, for about $1 or 50 cents plus postage. Edward Hunter was able to interview and meet some of the prisoners of war, their American POWs during the Korean War. And he has a chapter on black, and the term Negro was, of course, the accepted term. He said the Negro is a POW, and I explained that they gave these blacks special attention. They wanted these black Americans to turn against the United States. It would have been great propaganda for the communists. Mm-hmm. But they were very frustrated in their efforts to do that. They only got 1 or 2 out of the, how many POWs, black POWs. And they drew some conclusions. They said that few things. They said that these black Americans have strong religious convictions, and 2, that they lacked the capacity to hate. So it would point out, the Ku Klux Klan and racism and all of the negatives of America, the United States at that time. Mm-hmm. And in spite of that, in spite of the negative things that many of these soldiers encountered, here they are, defending the United States, in prison, at behalf of the United States, but still many of them discriminated against, not getting full citizenship as guaranteed under the Constitution, et cetera. But they said almost to a man that it's their country and they love the country and they will not go against the country of their birth because they love it. And because they lacked the capacity to hate and they had strong convictions. So what does the enemy do when they find that out? First, they get into the churches. I mean, if I was the devil, I'm going to the schools, to the churches. I want to destroy the faith, and I want to destroy the youth in the schools.
Right.
But they also started these organizations that promoted race hatred. Groups like the Southern Christian Leadership Council, which is the word Christian is thrown in there, but it didn't belong in there. And groups like there was several, and of course the Black Panthers. Now the Black Panthers had been around since the 30s, but they didn't really make any headway until Malcolm X came on the scene, a very intelligent, dynamic guy. So in other words, the enemies of America had to promote race hatred among of course, the Black Panthers, and there was other groups like that came out from the late 50s and early 60s, and their main mission was to promote race hatred amongst their fellow blacks. And they succeeded to, unfortunately, a certain extent. And Reverend Manning, and also the blacks community, and you know this, have been historically conservative-minded when it comes to abortion and homosexuality. You explained to me that some of the black churches in Harlem have actually helped the militant homosexuals when they protest his church. Can you explain about that?
Right. I found this out just yesterday when I was with Reverend Manning. If you remember how when we were doing the filming on 123rd and Lenox Avenue on Friday, you remember that big brown church directly across the street
yes,
from Reverend
Manning? Yes, beautiful old Gothic revival. It looked like an old. Right. I thought it may have been a Catholic church that.
Right. And I told you that was a Seventh-day Adventist, Black Seventh-day Adventist church.
Yes.
But I found out just yesterday, Reverend Manning had mentioned to me that very church opposed him. He said a while back there was a homosexual pride parade up Lenox Avenue, and it was raining that day, and the homosexuals were protesting against Reverend Manning's church. And as they stood in front of the Seventh-day Adventist church with umbrellas in the rain protesting Reverend Manning's church, was directly across the street on Lenox Avenue, the pastor of that Seventh-day Adventist church came outside, told the homosexual demonstrators that they could come in his church, get in out of the rain, have hot coffee, warm up, and then go back outside to continue their protest against Reverend Manning's church. Now, the irony of that was not lost on me when he said that, because think about this for your listening audience. Here you have a black Seventh-day Adventist church on the corner of 123rd and Lenox, standing with sodomites, protesting another black minister directly across the street because the other black minister opposes what the Bible calls an abomination. Then, after he told me that, then, remember when we were doing the taping and that little AME church that was on the 123rd Street side?
Yes, it totally abuts the other building. It almost looks like it's the same building. It's just built right next to each other.
Right. He gave me the history on that church as well. That sign that you videotaped that said, "We are not like that church on the corner," speaking of Reverend Manning's church.
Right.
Says, "We support President Barack Obama." And when I got to the pulpit to give my remarks, I told the people at Reverend Manning's church, I said, now the irony of that is amazing. I said, because when you look at the marquee, on that church, I said, what you see is here is a woman pastor of the AME church who claims to love God, but yet she's denouncing the minister of the church that's adjoining to her church, and the minister that she's denouncing, Reverend Manning, because he opposes the sin of homosexuality. Yet this same woman had on her marquee the scripture, Romans chapter 10, verse 9, and the scripture reads, and you got it on your camera.
That's right.
If thou wilt confess the Lord Jesus and believe in thy heart that God has raised him from the dead, thou shalt be saved. For with the heart man believeth unto righteousness, and with the mouth confession is made unto salvation. And I told the people when I was in the pulpit, you'll see it when you go on the on his.
By the way, though, this is the Manning Report, which you can just go online, do a search, and you put the Manning Report. I think it's .org. You will see the archives of his church services too, as well, right? Some of the services he has online as well.
You just look for yesterday's service, the 22nd of August, the Pulpit of Power, the 11:30 service, and you'll see it. It's the Pulpit of Power, 11:30 service, August 22nd. And you'll see it. And the first thing you'll see is the praise team, women singing. They'll sing about 4 or 5 songs. That'll take a few minutes. And then the First Lady, Pastor Manning's wife, she'll get up and give announcements and read the scripture passage. And then Pastor Manning comes up. He says a few things. Then he brings me up. So anyway, I said that scripture that she used, quoting the Apostle Paul, is the same apostle in a few chapters before that condemned homosexuality. I said, so here's this woman quoting the Apostle Paul who condemned homosexuality, and yet she's in agreement with a sodomite president who supports homosexuality, and yet she claims to be a Christian minister while she is condemning another Christian minister, just like that Seventh-day Adventist minister across the street. So the point that I'm making to the listeners, Brother Hal, is simply this. There is a lot of confusion in the black community. Black people, I can't speak on that thing you were just mentioning about them people years ago. But right. Black people can be very, very racist today. In fact, they look at a lot of things through a racist lens, rather than dealing with issues like Dr. King said, not judging people by their skin color, but by their character. Black people have been trained because of the history of blacks with slavery and then 200-some years of slavery and then another 100 years of Jim Crow. Racism is deeply embedded in the black psyche and in the black soul and spirit. And black people need to be delivered from that. And like you said, even though sometimes Reverend Manning paints people with a broad brush, there is a lot of truth in what he said, generally speaking, because black people, for example, I'll give you an example. It happened just today. I had to go back to New York, up to the Bronx, to preach at a little a house church. And after I got done with my message, I opened it up. They had church in the living room. And then I opened it up for Q&A. And one of the women in there got very offended with me. She's a social worker. It was all black and Spanish people. And one of the women in there got very offended with me because she's a social worker and yet she's a liberal. And she said, you don't understand, because I was talking about this bogus movement, this Marxist movement of the Black Lives Matter. Unbeknownst to me, I didn't know this woman was a part of that, a Black Lives Matter thing. So I was,
of course, all lives matter, not just black lives. All lives matter.
Yeah, right. But see, I didn't know she was in that movement. So when I got done saying what I said about how bogus that movement was, because of the fact that while they were talking about Black Lives Matter, kids were getting shot in drive-bys by the blacks. So she got offended. And she says, you don't understand, Reverend Kraft, they're killing each other because of poverty and because there's no resources in the black community and because of this and because of that. And I gently said, no, young lady, you're wrong. I says, that has nothing to do with it. She came up with the old narrative. We don't have, we can't produce guns and manufacture guns and bring in drugs into our neighborhood. I said, ma'am, I says, you're drinking the Kool-Aid. I said, first of all, even if the theory was true that other races are bringing weapons and dope into the black communities, that still would not change the problem, because the dope and the weapons would sit right there until hell freezed over, until people picked that stuff up and began to use it. So she got quite offended because she, being in social work, had bought into the lie that certain people are oppressed and doing these evil acts because of some other race that doesn't give them what they think they're supposed to have. And then let me
mention this though. You could have said, I know there's so much to say, but there are some people bringing death into the black community. It's called Planned Parenthood.
I brought that up. That was
yeah, good for you.
Yeah, that was one of my points. And I think that's what got her offended, because I said, why aren't these same people that are protesting the police with these Black Lives Matter signs, why aren't they in front of all these abortion clinics with those same signs? And I think that was part of it that got her so offended. But the beauty of the thing was, after I corrected her, even though I knew she didn't want to hear it, another little young black woman, 20, 21 years old, corrected her herself. She says, whatever the woman's name was, she says, one of the reasons why a lot of people don't want to change is because they're comfortable in what they're doing. And
that's right.
I said, that's a master shot. And this was a young woman, about 20 or 21 years old, corrected this older black woman who wanted to buy the old Kool-Aid narrative that, well, these blacks that are killing each other, they're killing each other because they live in poverty and they don't have any resources to get jobs. And but I says, ma'am, that narrative does not even hold water. I says, what in the world not having a job or having resources have to do with you selling dope and killing somebody? I said, and this going on all day, every day. I says, no. And then the young girl who rebuked her says, how many people have access to the Internet? Everybody does. Everybody
right.
Everybody has access to the Internet, and even if they didn't, they could go to the library for free. Don't tell me, she told the other woman, that there's no resources, no access to the resources. No, people are comfortable in doing what they want to do, and they're always looking for a scapegoat to shift the blame of why they don't get up and do what they need to do.
And there are so many successful people, black Americans, that have done very well for themselves in spite of some of the discrimination they faced. And, you know, I lived in a neighborhood, a Hyde Park section of Boston, and it became predominantly black. We only moved out because we had to help mother-in-law here, just a few miles away, and we spend time and we visit friends there. A lot of homeowners, a lot of people worked hard, able to get a mortgage and have a home, even rental property. They're doing okay for themselves. I mean, lots of these people making a lot more money than I am, and I'm saying, amen. I'm glad to see it. I'm glad that they were able to get a part of the American dream. And
right, exactly. And that's why this race narrative is so dangerous, because it's going to become a kettle. I was looking at some of Dr. Manning's clips, and that's why I encourage your listeners to get online, Google his name, and start looking at some of the video clips. There's literally
if you go to YouTube, and I tell you about Reverend Manning, if he had white skin, you might say he was a flaming racist.
Yeah,
he loves America. He loves black America. He says some hard things, but he says some hard things about white people too. And one of them, he said, this message is to white Americans. He's really adamant, very fun. What's wrong with y'all? And he's talking about the leadership that some white conservatives have embraced, people like Glenn Beck, that he has, total contempt for. He said, you used to have a man like George Washington. Now you have a man like Glenn Beck with them red sneakers on, who's always weeping. And he's looking. You need to be, you need to have strong leadership. And I don't mean strong leadership as a dictator, but people get their act together.
Right.
And guys who get all weepy, and I know we're emotional creatures, and there's a time to cry and a time for that, and But the bottom line is that that's not the kind of leadership we're looking for. We're looking for people who are going to stand strong like a rock.
Right,
and
right.
Here we are.
If you remember how, while we were videotaping, you remember that the plaque that you saw about what the vision was for building strong men
That's
leaders?
Right.
That's
right.
Then. All right.
He wants to see the blacks in Harlem become homeowners, so they don't have to rely on other people to pay their rent.
Right.
Have their own businesses, so they know what it's like to have a business and to create their own job. Instead of saying, "Oh, where are the jobs? How come the white man doesn't give me a job?" Well, start your own job. During in American baseball, professional baseball, for years they had a gentleman's agreement: no black players would be allowed. It wasn't until Branch Rickey decided, hey, but what happened? What did the free market do? They created something called the Negro League. And so we're going to form our own league, and they had some excellent players to the point where they couldn't ignore these guys. And someplace, you know what? We want to win some pennants. We better get some of these guys like Jackie Robinson and John Newcomb and Willie Mays, and that's what they did. But the free market, they said they couldn't keep them from playing baseball. They just couldn't play on these teams. So what? We'll start our own teams.
Right, exactly.
And if we can't go to those white schools, let's start our own schools.
Exactly.
Let's have schools, and if we can't ride on their buses, let's start our own buses.
Exactly.
You know, I got a chance to visit Motown, the museum in Detroit, a few years ago. And the young man that gave us a tour, it was a very modest house. It was kind of interesting, too. He probably wasn't trying to make a case for the free market system. He was just speaking the truth about what happened. And he said the founder, Gordy
Berry.
Again, he borrowed money from his siblings, started this, and he hired some great entertainers, and they were in big demand. And there was a hotel in Atlanta, Georgia, that signed a contract, and they reneged. They said, we don't want you. You're all blacks, and our audience is all white. So what did they do? They didn't have a big demonstration. They bought the hotel about 5 years later. They bought it.
Exactly.
And they threw a high, and then when they bust, there would be a bus. The Motown performers would travel throughout some southern states. They said Klansmen on occasions would fire their guns. So what they do? They fired back. And guess what happened? They left them alone. That's what happens if you shoot at people and you're a bully. They shoot back. You better back off. You see, and that's what they did. And that builds character. And look at Motown. I mean, they took off, and I think that unfortunately sometimes success got to some of the performers there. But the bottom line is that even with all the problems, you still had the freedoms to do these kinds of things.
Exactly.
I'm just reading. We took a trip to the Apollo Theater, and I was very intrigued by. I bought a book. I couldn't put it down. I'm about halfway through it. Just all this, how these people came there, and they had nothing, and they had but talent, and in many cases, these people in a short time became very successful. And white people, black people would visit, would come up to the Apollo and listen, and they'd sign big contracts. I mean, and it looks like it was sort of like the minor leagues of the entertainment industry, and many of these people through the Apollo ended up becoming quite successful, millionaires, because of the free market system.
You buy there, and I forgot that you had purchased that book. I'm glad you purchased it, and I'm glad that you're into it, because the free market works. And I told that lady that today, and she got offended. She says, well, I'm not patriotic. And then I said to her, ma'am, I said, tell me what country you want to go to then, and I'll buy you a one-way ticket. She had she had no response to that, because too many of our people have bought into the socialist Kool-Aid, and it's very, very destructive. So I was glad that I totally forgot that I had taken you into the Apollo, and that you had purchased that book. That's good, Hal.
Well, we only have a few minutes left. This is the fastest half hour in radio. So I do want to, again, mention that this show was heard on WBCQ, The Planet Shortwave, every Monday night at 7:30 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. We also take this show and we convert it to a video and put it up on YouTube, so the Camp Constitution YouTube channel. We've got a few backlogs, but eventually we'll get it up there. And we do recommend that you visit Reverend Manning's YouTube channel. And again, I don't particularly agree with every single thing he says, but I tell you what, to be in Harlem, to take a stand for righteousness, I wish we had more. I mean, you're one of them. You're like you don't have your own church, but you've been promoting these values for years with your ministry, and a fixture at Camp Constitution. I couldn't imagine a camp without you and your wife, and you've been a real blessing to me.
Thank you.
And I'm hoping that we get a chance to invite some of Reverend Manning's. I'm sure he has some wonderful people in his church, and we'd love to get some of them at Camp Constitution.
Yeah, definitely. I was very impressed yesterday, Hallie, and I'm glad you had mentioned to the listeners to Google his name and go into his website and go into his Facebook page. And the YouTube pages. There is so much good information there. And I will definitely let you know as soon as he schedules me for the Manning report, and then I will follow up on that to get you back down to Harlem and get
Looking
you on.
Forward to it. Looking forward to it. All right. God bless you, Reverend Stevie Kraft. And thank you for listening.
Bye-bye.
All right. Bye now.